Okay, and here it is, hour number 2. We are at a point in our existence, I guess that word applies, where the words of one man always are to be found rattling around in what's left of my mind in the background, sometimes in the foreground, and the words are the title of an essay that he wrote, must be 12, 14 years ago now. He is a frequent visitor to this program, perhaps not as frequent as he should be, but it goes back many, many years. His name is Dr. Joseph Chiapp. He is a medical doctor, lives in Australia, and his story is well known. Agree or disagree with him, he is always fascinating to listen to. And what, you may ask, was the title of his essay that you can find at rense.com? Summing it all up perfectly, he wrote, Terminal Madness of the End Times. And if there was ever madness on this planet, you're looking at it, and it's going to get worse and worse. Thought we'd spend an hour this hour with Dr. Chiapp. He is standing by down in Oz right now, where things are not as good as they might be by a long shot. In fact, some people say they're even worse than they are here in some ways. At any rate, hello, Joseph. How are you? And welcome back to the program.
Hello, Jeff. I'm well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Where are you? Where are you right now?
In a little town called Stanthorpe in Queensland. This is great for the first row.
Okay, you're on a cell phone. It's not real good. Maybe are you inside a building, outside a building?
Inside. Do you want me to go out, see if it's better?
If the weather is tolerable, you might go outside, and let's see if we get a better connection.
Okay, it's only 45 degrees outside.
45, your teeth will chatter. That's too cold. You're all right right now.
45 centigrade.
Oh, that's right. It is summer down there. Okay.
It's about 120.
Oh, is that all?
No, I can cope. I can cope. Can you hear me better?
Well, so far, we'll give it a try. Maybe you go back in a few minutes when you start to pass out. I don't want you to do that.
No, I'll be right. I'll be right.
All right.
Well, I published in 1999, I think, from memory, Jeff. I had written it earlier, and I wrote it because in that year, as you remember, I told you that certain classifications of consciousness were removed from the planet.
Yes.
The theomorph. A billion theomorphs.
Yes.
Now, everyone laughed. And then I said, now we're in the age of the shells. And that's exactly what we're finding now. They're all just robots, empty shells.
I've said, Joseph, many times, and I think I may have first raised the issue with you and asked you what your thoughts were about this, but it does seem to me that an awful lot of people walking and talking and looking like humans are actually without what we would call a soul. Now, defining soul is something that is not easily done, but these people are lacking something very substantial, very intrinsic to being what we call humans. And I'm not sure what it is, but it might be a soul, it might be something else. But we are looking at a zombie nation and a zombie world.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, look, in one of the earlier shows, I told you that this planet was being finalized, and that the Jehovah principle, which is the mechanism from this evil era that arose, that was controlling everything with programming, had been dismantled. Therefore, if the controlling mechanism called Jehovah has been dismantled, everything would go out of control, and that's exactly what's happened. All these robots and demons were programmed by the Jehovah principle, the Jehovah mechanism. Now, that mechanism is finished. So these are like out-of-control puppets, and they're going to self-destruct. That's what they always do. We should start from the beginning, actually.
Sure.
When we took out the billion theomorphs, are the ones made with the real light within, the real God consciousness, when we evacuated them in 99 in preparation for the destruction of the planet, all that was left were 3 classes of beings, of consciousnesses, and they were all false consciousnesses. They can't exist outside of this false dimension. We're living in an illusion that is almost totally destroyed. It's 94% destroyed. Now, the three classes are, this is going to sound very strange to people, but if they go back from the books that I wrote from 85 onwards, everything follows, and everything that I've said has occurred exactly like I've said.
Right.
Now, the three consciences were, there's a demonic class. 30%, 31% are now demons in physical bodies. These physical bodies are just cardboard boxes. They're just shells. And they have these false mechanisms, and they're controlled by programming, pollution, and indoctrination that I've explained in detail in my books.
There is, now, Joseph, if I might add to that, there is an incredible amount of control of masses of walking and talking humanoids on this planet. Control primarily through the use of EMF, ELF, microwave radiation. We are electrical beings first. The brain is an electrical organ. It's not a chemical organ.
That's right.
And there are frequencies for damn near virtually everything.
That's right. That's correct. And there are rings of awareness that bombard the body, and the body has got three envelopes of electromagnetic envelopes surrounding it. It's got an astral body, it's got an etheric body, and it's got what's called an emotional body. And it's by these frequencies that they control the shell completely. It's when we are able to bypass it that we become realized and get God consciousness. But there's not too many doing that. Let me go back to the three classes of consciousness who have got on the planet now, and you'll understand better.
Sure.
The demonic ones are the ones in charge. They are made totally of darkness. They are vicious, malicious, and they destroy everything, and they're self-destructive as well. They're the ones that control America, control China, but there are different classes of them, and they control all the world. They're in all the places of control because this is their paradise. The other two classes, because we've evacuated the theomorphs, are robots, just robotic consciousnesses. Now, some of them were made by divine, with the use of some divine energy, and some of them have responded to the call by the light to self-realize, and they're called viables, and they're going to be taken off the planet. We're going to evacuate them very shortly. There's about 650 million of those, and they're the really nice people you meet who really can live in joy, peace, harmony, and love. Mm-hmm. The other robots are just robotic, useless consciousness. They're the useless eaters that they call, and that they're going to perish. They are nothing but shells. Now, people shouldn't get upset if I talk this way, because we've got to go beyond the emotions. The emotions are things that trap us within here. By the way, I'm speaking as a metaphysician, not as a medical doctor.
Got it.
This is far beyond medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you recall, I said in the shows, and people should go back and listen to those shows, that in 85, the reason I've been quiet and not done many of your shows, but I'll do more as time proceeds now, the reason is that I've been busy finalizing the destruction of this planet, which is going to occur in between 4 and 6 years' time. And that is immutable. That's not going to change.
Huh.
In 85, when I consciously came back from the craft, we have a special craft outside of this dimension that's controlling all this. We gave ourselves 50 years to complete the work. So that meant that in 2035 was going to be the final date. And I had to be here for the final day for a very particular reason, which I'll shortly expose, but not just today. Now, that time, because we've been able to do things faster and faster, the final date has been coming down, down, down. In fact, on the last show we did, I said to you, it can be as close as July 2017. Now, you'll see how this was before Fukushima and other things occurred. Now that these things are occurred, you've got Fukushima, that if it continues the way it is, the planet won't last 4 years. You've got the Civil War coming in America. You've got the nuclear war coming between China and the United States. which I predicted to you in about 1991, 92 in one of the shows. Do you remember I said some of the demons from America shifted over to China, and they'll eventually have a war?
I did.
They're sparring for that, and that will destroy the whole world. These people are self-destructive. Now, what we're going to do is take out, we've classified every bit of consciousness on all classes, in all classes, that's human, animal, vegetable, and mineral, into viable and non-viable. The viable ones are going to be taken out, evacuated from this dimension, either physically or after they die, after they drop the shell, and are going to another dimension that's already been prepared. The other ones are going to be transmuted. That is, they're going to go back to amorphic energy. But it's not as simple as that. They have to pay a certain price for the maliciousness and harm they've caused others. So it's not just a simple wiping of memory. So they will get their dues. Not Jews as in the race, Jews, D-U-E-S.
Got it, dues, yeah. Stand by, Joseph. Hold on, will you please? We have to take a little break for a couple of minutes. Just go inside and cool off. 120 is too darn hot. Be right back in a minute with Dr. Joseph Chiapp in just a second. Okay, and welcome back. Talking with Dr. Joseph Chiapp in Australia. Okay, he has unusual views on things and did something many years ago with wonderful Joyce Murphy, who has passed on and who knows the answers now. But he did go on a trip all over Mexico to very rural areas, little villages, little towns that had no relation to each other, and talked to people about UFOs and ETs. And what's very, very bizarre is that, well, you tell them, Joseph, what were you told by these people? And then there were poor people, there were professional people, there were all kinds of different folks you talked to in many areas of Mexico. What did they tell you?
Well, that's right. That they had received messages from two different types of aliens. One lot had told them not to worry, they were going to fix everything up, that the Earth was going to be fine again, which is not true. Over these years, we've noticed it's deteriorated badly. The other ones that came from the plasma crafts, now this is important, told them, no, the Earth is finished. We're selecting who can continue and who can't, and we'll evacuate those that continue. Now, Joyce Murphy had never received that message from them, and I sort of prized them out of it, but that's one of the reasons why I went to Mexico, to see that the message had been received. And then the whole process began, and it became public. Now, when I did this, the New Agers were quite against me and said, no, there's no evil, there's not going to be anything, the Earth is going to improve, and so on and so forth. And that's been shown to be a complete lie. In fact, if you want to go to the Gaia principle, that is, that the Earth is a living organism, which it was, you have to realize that all planets have a spiritual component. Everything has a spiritual component, even though it's a false spiritual component. Now, the spiritual component of the Earth has been destroyed. We're living on a dead rock. It's doomed. It cannot regenerate. Doesn't matter what happens, it's dead. It cannot regenerate whatsoever.
Okay.
So all these disasters that are occurring are part of the fact that it's a dead corpse. Now, the fact that it will fall on its axis, the fact that it changes polarity, electrical polarity, the fact that it's going to fracture more and more, the shifts are going to occur and so on, are just part of a rotten apple breaking up. Besides that, the whole galaxy is breaking up because it's got to go. I've mentioned in previous shows that more and more of the universe has already been destroyed, and we're up to 94%. When we first started in 85, I think we started shows in early 90, I said to you that about just over 90% has been corrected. Now it's 90%.
Right.
And there's evidence that all the planets and all the systems in this galaxy that we can see are fracturing. They're dying. Now, the things we're picking up with the Hubble telescope no longer exist. They're up to 10 billion years ago. It's the light from structures that were there 10 billion years ago. They no longer exist. And as it says in ancient scriptures, in the end time, we'll see stars falling out of the sky. What that means is those lights will go out because it'll come at their end will be witnessed by us. Now, we haven't got much time left at all. The other thing I mentioned is that there's going to be a lot of rogue comets and meteors occurring. And this one, ISON and others are coming. They will eventually hit. But it doesn't matter. All these things are going to come at once. I predicted civil wars, you remember, in after 9/11. I think the day after 9/11 we did a show and I told you it was an inside job, and that was going to be a key to fracturing of the American population. Mm-hmm. I just see recently now they've got definitive proof, and they've published it, that it was the Bushes that and his government plus Mossad that did the whole job.
That's right.
Blamed some dead.
That's right.
So now this is going to cause a fracturing in the population of America. That's why they've made it a prison state. Now, the reason why America is suffering more than the rest of the world is because its karma is coming back to it. Karma is now instant. America, particularly after the Second World War, became the headquarters for this Jehovah principle. Uh-huh. Jehovah was the evil principle there. Now, whether the American people want to admit it or not, America became a rogue nation, very powerful rogue nation that destroyed a lot of other nations and a lot of other people.
Still at it.
History is that it caused a lot of misery. Is that not so?
No, it's still at it. It's still going strong, Joseph.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now you've got to go through that karma. Now, why do these demons do this? They live on the energy they can exploit. That's why this is an illicit system that must go. Mm-hmm. It can't live on its own energy. It hasn't got any energy. It only thrives on the energy of beings that's trapped here. Mm. Now, those beings, the theomorphs, have been evacuated and all energy cut off from the universe. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's got to collapse. And this is exactly what we're seeing. You notice people are getting more tired. Their immune system is down.
Oh, yeah.
They are unable to regenerate because the spiritual energy, there are three types of energy, as I've mentioned in previous shows. Uh-huh. You've got the normal energy that comes from food and photosynthesis and so on. You've got the prana that we need and we sleep and go every night to get at prana dispensing stations in the astral. And you've got the spiritual energy that only the theomorphs, those with the divine energy, have got. Now, seeing there are so few of those now, that the demons are hungry, very hungry, and they're creating these wars that cause more and more suffering for people so they can extract that energy. Mm-hmm. Now, the massive pornography does exactly the same thing. It excites people to have sex and to masturbate and so on. Lose energy doing that, and they collect that energy to sustain themselves a little bit longer. But they can't go on forever because it's the law of diminishing returns. The more they use it, the more it dissipates. And we're under the principle of the second law of thermodynamics. Uh-huh. Any closed system that runs out of energy has got to collapse within itself, and this is what's going to happen to this planet.
Very interesting.
Got all these methods coming at once. Mm-hmm. This is what is going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years.
Okay, yeah. Now,
massive
Joseph, let me ask you a question here. We have to take a little pause here in a minute, but you say in the next 4 or 5 years, when we come back after the break, I'd like you to address the unexpected. We never thought about this when we first started our association so long ago. Fukushima. Fukushima, of course, is the game changer. It is changing everything. It has destroyed the entire northern Pacific Ocean. It is coming to the west coast. It will migrate onto land, into the air, into the soil, into the water, into the food, and into the so-called sentient species of the planet. It'll move across the United States and across the Atlantic. It'll circle the northern hemisphere. It'll eventually work its way down. There is no technology existing now that can be used to remediate or stop the release of massive amounts of radioactive nuclides in the water that's flowing into the ocean every day. I'm going to get your read on Fukushima in just a couple of minutes, so hang on. Okay, I'm back with Dr. Joseph Chapelon. 120 degrees in Australia. He's, are you inside or outside now?
Just at the front door.
Oh.
No, it's tolerable. We get used to it here.
Okay, all right. Okay,
It's valley,
so
yep.
I don't know how much your media is telling you. Just so you know, no surprise to you, the federal government here is saying absolutely nothing about the radioactivity that has already come to the States for almost 3 years now, since 3/11, and is covering the northern Pacific Ocean and has destroyed a great deal of sea life already and may end up wiping out, eradicating most all of it because it is bioaccumulative. The government will not talk about so many stories we've run. They won't tell people what's happening. It's up to the people to do their own measuring, and we're going to be trying to feature that here on the program and the website. So the lies continue. The EPA knows. The government is measuring the water, the air, the land. They know. UC Berkeley was measuring water, air, and land, and then they stopped completely and without notification about a year and a half ago. Obviously, since their readings kept going up, the government said, that's enough, and they stopped. So there are a lot of Americans who are going to get sick and unfortunately die, not overnight, but in time. It's going to happen.
Oh, very quickly. Look, it's even worse here. It's not worth buying the newspaper. All it's got is fashions, semi-naked models, and football and cricket.
Aha.
They have no real news.
Yeah.
People don't watch the news on television because it's all rubbish.
Yeah.
You can only get information from the alternate media, if you know what I mean. And we don't know how quickly they cut that down. You're one of them. Now, look, it's important. You should know this, Jeff. I'm going to brag a little bit. My very first book, I had a chapter on predictions, and one of the predictions was that the Japanese islands will be totally destroyed. Now, I didn't know how it was going to occur.
Mm-hmm.
I assumed that the Japanese islands are on the edge of the continental shelf, and through a series of earthquakes, they are going to be destroyed. Now, whether that was a natural earthquake or a nuclear explosion or half technology that caused that accident there to affect the nuclear factory, we don't know. But that prophecy has come true. And through that fracturing, eventually all those Japanese people are going to die of radiation, and therefore it means that the whole of Japan is destroyed. But as well as that, it means that this radiation will continue and destroy the whole food chain. It's already affecting birds because they've got nothing to eat. And the little fish, bigger fish, the mammals and so on, which means that ultimately we that depend on this sort of marine food will die. And now, one thing you don't know, we ran out of anti-thyroid tablets here in Australia for quite a while, and they won't say anything. And I'm sure it's the same in America. I noticed they've ordered massive quantities of potassium iodide to treat people, but they won't tell you that these people are going to get thyroid cancer from the radiation. You see, they're hiding everything, and the cancer rates are going up massively. And this brings me to the next step, and this is the important part of my work now for the next 3, 4, 5 years, is to prepare people for what's going to happen. We have to remain as physically fit as possible to avoid these injurious illnesses like cancer and leukemia and so forth. Secondly, we have to protect our minds from the madness that's infecting everyone out there. You see, these people are going mad because they haven't got a mind that can connect to anything. The Bibles are able to connect to what's called a supermind. And this one will give us all the information we need to lead us to the evacuation. Now, after I wrote all this, I started investigating, and it was actually Friedrich Nietzsche that predicted this over a century ago with his Superman. He was talking about ascent of the human consciousness to a supermental plane. Then he reincarnated as a man called Sri Aurobindo in India. He was a philosopher, a King's College trained philosopher, who then wrote about the descent of the supermental consciousness. And this is exactly what's happening. And I'm continuing that work where I'm starting now to teach people to connect that supermental plane to destroy the fear of dropping the shell, in other words, of dying, and to move on to the new world that we have, that the Bibles have. The ones that are going mad will go mad because they will realize they've got no future. Once they realize that, as it says in the old text, there'll be gnashing of teeth, and they'll end in the
I'm not even, I'm not sure that they'll go mad because they're going to realize much of anything. A lot of these people are going mad simply because they're going mad. There's nobody home. By the way, in the States here, I know you have a similar game in Australia, they call it a game, but over here it's called the knockout game. Over there it's called the King something. They go up and punch people and try and knock them out. Well, over here, it's black against white. The black against white crime in America is enormous. We are at the incipient stages of race war in America. We have whites, we have Latinos, we have blacks, we have Arabs, and we have Asians. We have 5 basic ethnic groups that can be set upon each other at any time.
Yeah, they're insane. They're totally insane. But once they realize they're finished, now it is seeping through the unconscious state to the conscious mind, and that's why we're getting more and more suicides. Now, unfortunately, some of them are seeking escapism in drugs, as well as those American herbs, South American herbs. Now, what happens there is they get fracturing of their chakras or centers of consciousness, which facilitates demonic possession, and they end up suiciding as well. They go nuts and then suicide. And we're seeing more and more of this. Mental health in Australia is totally in a mess. They can't fix anybody anymore. And people are really going nuts because of all this. So the thing is to teach people how to reach the supermental plane and get ready to go to another state. Have we got a few more minutes yet?
Yes, we do have to take a break. Hold on, Joseph. We're just three minutes. We'll come right back. We have another segment to go, so stand by, and we will continue with the rather remarkable and unusual views, to put it mildly, of Dr. Joseph Chiapp, M.D., speaking tonight as a metaphysician, not as a medical doctor. Back in a minute. Okay, and we're back talking to Dr. C. Okay, Joseph, we've touched on Japan. You did talk about the end of Japan long ago, and quite clearly Japan is a dying country. There's no question about it. Tokyo, by all rights, should have been evacuated, but there's too much money involved, so they'll just evacuate the people into their graves instead. They're not going to shut the city down. The idea of holding the Olympics there is even more laughable. Especially in Tokyo Bay, where they're actually burying radioactive ash from the municipal incinerators they're using to burn hundreds of thousands of tons or hundreds of millions of tons of often radioactive debris from the hurricane and tsunami. I mean, it's insane. It's completely insane.
They are. That's the terminal madness that we spoke about, Jeff.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, and that was in my very first book, The Destruction of the Japanese islands. Now, I've got a website, www.jchappalone.com, where people can start reading this information, and then I've got many books as well that they can order from me as e-books. I haven't reprinted them for quite a long while. Now, the whole process is now to awaken the ones that are to continue to become these superhuman beings. And I'm seeing it now. I've started public lectures, and I can see people that as they connect, they transform remarkably. They lose all fear. They live in the joy of the future. It's just wonderful to see. Now, I'm going to tell you something very personal. I've never spoken about personal things. We've always spoken about philosophy and metaphysics. Is that not so?
Yes, sir.
Apart from the time I joined Murphy to Mexico. Now, my mother died last week. It wasn't unexpected. She had been ill for about a year, and we knew she was only going to last a year. And she died last week, and because she'd been so ill, I expected her to be in the recuperation room in the astral for a couple of weeks. Instead, on the second day, she was up and about. And then she actually, this is one good thing about being clairvoyant, she actually walked into my lounge room 2 nights ago. And I had another person who's very clairvoyant who saw her first and alerted. And my little dogs immediately barked, and I sensed the presence, her presence. So we had a chat about this and how it's going. And one of the things I asked her, of course, and she was familiar with my work here and everything I predicted and so on. Yeah. Because she knows from when I was a little child that I was into all this. I asked her, how accurate am I now with this final date? And she said, look, it's pretty accurate. It's slightly harder from the astral world to pinpoint timing because time varies there. If you know what I mean, from dimension to dimension, time can vary.
Sure.
The higher dimension you go to, the faster time is, till eventually there is no time. So for them, a minute might be 10 years here and so on. But she said, look, roughly speaking, we're on track and it's not going to go much more than a year, 2 maximum. So if you look at what Fukushima is doing, it has the capability, plus the damage from the Gulf, as you know, these things alone have the capability of destroying all life on Earth within 4 years. And that's apart from the nuclear war that has to come, that China has promised that it will. And I see North Korea now says it must attack the United States. But these are programmed to self-destruct. Apart from that, the fall on the axis is inevitable. It does that every 26,000 years, and that's written as the Great Flood in the Bible. But of course, it's happened many, many times before that. Right. We will be hit by comets and other stray celestial bodies. All these things are going to happen, and they'll happen all at once. So ultimately, the physical will be totally destroyed, and there'll be no Earth left, and no people, no sign of life, except the spiritual life. And basically, we are spiritual beings trapped in these physical cardboard boxes. That's what I call the human bodies. And so are animals. Many humans have come back as animals. I don't know whether people know that or not. But sometimes our relatives that die can't sustain a human body because they haven't got enough energy. So they come back into the bodies of our pets, as our dogs, as our cats, even as our horses, as our goats in the field and so on, even as cattle. And it's ridiculous. We're eating, we're cannibalizing humans. Now, a lot of humans are trapped in dolphins, in whales, in big birds and so on. And those with clairvoyant vision will see that. Now, we're going to develop our clairvoyancy more and more as the end time comes because we have to know who's who so we can keep away from the dark ones. And eventually like will go to like. It's a spontaneous reaction of the energy we contain. The ones that are of love and joy and glory and honesty are going to go with the ones that have similar qualities. They're going to keep away from the rats, the demons, those, you know who they are.
Sure.
You can sense them, you feel them. You look them in their eyes, all you see smell it. Now, this is going to be a natural thing, a natural separation, and family will break up, corporations will break up, and so on, marriages, everything, because like has got to go to like, and eventually the ones that are to continue will continue. Now, the final days are going to be, apart from this destruction where most of us, or many of us, are going to die physically, quite a number are going to be lifted up by crafts. Eventually the crafts will come, and the body will be lost there. It'll be dropped in when they're in the crafts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people have asked me, why do you need crafts if we're spirits and God is capable of doing everything? The thing is, the spirits themselves haven't got enough energy to travel the vast distances from dimension to dimension. So you need something like a craft to do that moving of that equipment, as it were. It's like walking from Los Angeles to New York rather than taking a plane. You can't do it if you walk. It'd take you too long and you'd run out of energy. You'd run out of supplies. You take an airplane and you're there in a few hours. It's the same with us going from dimension to dimension. Now, one of the other things I haven't mentioned is that there is a black hole in the center of this galaxy. That is now shortly going to be bombarded so that nothing else will come through that, and the whole galaxy will go. And we will go...
Wait. The whole Milky Way galaxy is going to go?
Yes. The Earth is part of that, and it's going to go simultaneously. That's why we're going to see the whole sky fall in, and so on. The Earth rotating, other things.
Yeah.
And we will be part of that, evacuate the galaxy. The whole galaxy will go. And the astronomers have already seen that different galaxies are being swallowed up by black holes outside of the Milky Way. So this is nothing new. All this physical structure, this physical universe, has to be totally eliminated because it's just a cancer on the face of creation. It's an illicit structure. It should never have been. It was an error that refused self-correction, the self-correction mechanisms. So I know it's a bit complicated for people to understand, but once they get the God realization and consciousness, they understand immediately because this information is inside every being who's got that droplet of divine light in them. Do you know what I mean? And,
gotcha.
And that is what what I'm trying to awaken now in the last few years. That's what we have to awaken to, that we are droplets of God consciousness trapped in these physical bodies. But the ones of darkness are not. They're just artificial creations that have been there to lord over us and try to destroy. They were never meant to be created that way. And they cannot see the light. They don't respond to love, no matter how much you love them. That's where the New Age is. If they responded to love, we would have fixed all these problems eons ago. The fact is they can't respond to love. They respond to emotional love, and which is possessiveness and sex, but they don't respond to true universal love, where we care for everyone equally. That way there wouldn't be any wars, there wouldn't be any fighting, there wouldn't be any stealing, and so on. Now, they can't respond to that, and they have no concept of the true light. They have no concept of existence outside of this malicious physical universe. And if you really look at the universe, it's there to damage us, to take our energy away. That's what it exists for, of the certain people, I mean. The others are just suckers, energy suckers, that thrive on the energy.
Well, energy vampires. Energy vampirism is very common now.
Yes, I predicted those years ago. Do you remember?
I do. Yep.
And you can be standing next to a person at a bus stop, and within seconds they'll take all your energy. You'll almost collapse.
Yep.
Now, a lot of prostitutes and gigolos and that are energy vampires. They service all those people to suck the energy out of them. But they do more than that. They put in negative energy that allows eventual demonic possession of those bodies. So that's the very big danger of having sex with these demons, these energy vampires. And that's the same danger with taking drugs, particularly these drugs that open up the centers and you've got no control. When I read Graham Hancock's book, I was very disappointed that he went down to South America and tried that drug. And he's saying that everyone could try it because it gives you awareness. But it gives you awareness of the demonic world. It's not the true God awareness. And it facilitates destruction of the individual. So whatever people do, they must not take these psychotropic drugs. that they are spiritual suicide. Keep away. Keep as clean as possible. Don't eat flesh. Don't eat fish now.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. I run a nice video up last night to try to show people you cannot eat animals and expect to advance or succeed on this planet. You can't do it.
No. The only people that get bowel cancer are beef eaters. Did you know that?
Say that again?
And the only people that get bowel cancer are beef eaters.
Ah, yes.
Except if they've got a particular genetic condition, the Chiapp syndrome, where they get the milk polyp.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And they can have cancerous skin.
Yeah.
But the majority is because of the contaminated beef. The same thing with breast cancer. Dairy causes breast cancer. Yes,
well, dairy products, milk is liquid meat. All dairy products are meat, in my estimation.
That's right.
So, yeah.
It's the casein in the milk, that protein that causes breast cancer. But they hide these things. You know what I mean?
Of course. Well, big business. They don't care.
It's run by money. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. We're out of time, Joseph. Thank you for being here, and we'll check in with you again soon as the three-ring circus, the Circus of Madness, the Circus Terminus, continues.
Yes. As things get worse, we should have more and more frequent shows, Jim.
Okay.
You'll find that their own ones will wake up. Yep.
Thank you again.
We need to help them. You're welcome.
Very good. Okay, good night.
Thanks for having me. Good night.
My pleasure. 120 degrees over there. Wow. All right. Stand by, and we'll be right back with Hour 3 coming up next.